Hello everyone, welcome to the Ginger Snap Series Month of Horror-WEEN. We'll be discussing the Elm Street franchise for you guys in a very blunt way. I'm your host, Steven Harrold, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you guys my review for A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, which was released in 1988. After Nightmare on Elm Street 3 did massively good at the box office, New Line Cinema made sure they greenlit Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and of course it was going to release the very next year in 1988. Now, if everyone remembers, 1988 was a very big fucking year in horror because not only did we have Nightmare on Elm Street 4, we also got Friday the 13th Part 7, Halloween 4, and the debut of Child's Play. So, 88 was a big fucking year. And when it comes to Elm Street 4, this is one of those movies that basically had that nice little rumor, especially attached with Part 7's Friday the 13th, that there was going to be a Freddy vs. Jason crossover, but that never happened. So we ended up getting Elm Street 4 instead. It's a solo film. And of course, when it comes to Elm Street 4, just like Halloween 4, this was the very first Elm Street film I ever saw as a child. Now, how does it hold up today? That's what I'm going to be discussing. So let's talk about Elm Street 4. Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. For the story of this film, Kristen, Joey, and Kincaid are still alive after the events of Part 3, and they're just living their normal teen lives with other friends at school. But Kristen still has that fear that Freddy Krueger will be coming back, and sure enough, he does. But in order for Freddy to get to the new kids, he has to wipe out the other kids first, and had to get Kristen to bring one of them in. Now, for the story of this film, just the notion that this comes very, very much a double feature, like how Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4 are just such a good double feature, just like in the realm of Halloween 4 and 5 are a good double feature, Halloween 1 and 2. Now, this film does that continuation very well, and then gives you the new characters themselves, with Freddy doing his own thing, of course, being Freddy is Freddy, right? And with the story, it seems like it was a little bit different, but that's because we are now in the real heights of fucking MTV, and that's why a lot of people not only put Part 3 and 4 as the MTV Freddy, or Elm Street, it really shows in this one, because it seems like it's definitely of a time. It's definitely the 80s. But nonetheless, the story is not too bad for a double feature for 3 and 4. So when it comes to the protagonists of this movie, of course, like I said, Kristen, Joey, and Kincaid had survived after number 3, but they get wiped out real quick as soon as Freddy comes back. First, we see Kincaid get killed because his dog Jason, which is a nice little fucking throwaway there. Gee, I wonder what that reference came from. Basically pisses on the ground, opens the earth in this junkyard, and Freddy is resurrected that way. Kincaid gets killed right away, and so does Joey. And Kristen now knows that they're back. The only problem is she gets wiped out right away after having like little hallucinations of Freddy here and there. But yeah, they get wiped out real quick. But now, of course, Joey and Kincaid are played by the same actors. It's Kristen who is not. It's not Patricia Arquette reprising her role. It is now Tuesday Night, and it shows. I mean, when people say that Kristen Parker is a very complex character, it has to do with the fact that she is played by not one but 2 different actresses in 2 different films. I mean, Kristen Parker being portrayed by Patricia Arquette gave her that characteristic, that drive to survive, that amazing final girl status, whereas Tuesday Night, it seems like she was only casted because she was blonde. And she did the music for the intro of this film, which is, not too bad. But her acting is not the greatest. And it shows. And the fact that they just had to wipe her away real quick, just so that fans can just kind of progress the story now and have characters that are now likable that have to be introduced, it made no difference that these characters had to die. Now for the new protagonist of the movie, we have Alice, who is leading the way in this film. She is a girl who daydreams a lot. And she's in control of her dreams until Kristen brings her into the dream world and now Freddy uses her to get all these other kids. But while they are dying, she's absorbing their powers within inside herself, and Freddy's taking their souls. So it basically sets up the movie where, you know, even to quote it at the final battle, where Freddy even says, you know, you got their powers, I got their souls. And it's like, yeah, it sets up that mono-e-mono kind of thing, that good protagonist and antagonist fight at the end. And Alice does a very good job in this film. It's a very likable character. She is very much a final girl status when it comes to the Elm Street franchise. She's on the same pedestal, I feel, as Nancy and also Kristen from Part 3. And Alice is a great addition when it comes to this film. Then you got the other characters. I mean, you got her brother Rick, and then Sheila, and Debbie. The thing about these characters is they're very, very bland. I mean, Rick, you know, he does karate, and, you know, that's his main characteristic. Then we have Debbie, who, you know, basically she hates bugs and is always lifting weights. You know, she's a strong girl. And then Sheila, you know, she's the nerdy type of character, and she invents things, you know, and has asthma. The characters are okay, but they're very bland compared to what we got from Elm Street 3, where there was that amazing connection with all the characters. And these ones, they don't lack, but you can tell when you meet them, it sets up how they're gonna fucking die right away. And it's a shame, because like the characters need to be fleshed out a little bit more, but they really need to progress the story a little bit better and to get Freddy on screens, because that's what the main thing was when it came to 1988. Now, of course, we get to Freddy Krueger himself, once again portrayed by Robert Englund. This is the look of Freddy Krueger I associate with the most, because this is the first Freddy film I ever saw, and his look here is what I would identify, like it's an upgrade from number 3, where it looks like his burn wounds form kind of more of a menacing kind of a look. It's not like Part 2, where he has like a hook nose and the red eyes, or, you know, number 3, which you can tell he's burned, but it, yeah, I don't know about that Part 3 look. But Part 4's look is great. Anywho, so Freddy Krueger, of course, in this film, he kills all the Elm Street kids, and then he has to get to the new kids. And this is where now, for sure, he has hit peak, you know, superstardom. Like, everyone was going to the movies to see Freddy, right? So he's like, how they would always say in documentaries, like, he's the James Bond now. I mean, that moment where he puts on the glasses on the beach during Kristen's dream just signifies, it's like, yeah. And then, of course, there's the other one-liner with the "how's this for a wet dream?" It's like, yeah, the one-liners now start really coming. And remember, bear in mind, this is the same year this movie came out, Child's Play came out. And that's when we gave birth to another wisecracking, pun-spewing fucking killer in cinema. But Freddy Krueger in this movie is done very well. And I do like his look. I do like what his plan is. And he just does his best in this film. For the gore and the kills of this film, it, man, how can I say this? It's not like Part 3. I mean, like, we see Joey and Kincaid killed with their glove, with Freddy's glove. We see Joey get killed in the waterbed. Hey, kids, remember when we had waterbeds? Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, he gets killed in the waterbed. And then Kincaid, he just gets stabbed, right? And that line, like, I'll see you in hell, and Freddy's just like, tell him Freddy sent you. And then, okay, cool. Then Kristen kind of just gets thrown into a boiler, which is full of fiery water and shit, and she's burned alive, I guess. Then you have the mediocre characters, where Sheila, I feel like her death is the best one in this fucking movie, I feel like. Because Freddy, like, I don't know how it happened, but Alice was asleep. Sheila wasn't, but for some odd reason, she got dragged into the fucking thing. But then again, you know, Nancy was awake or whatever in Part 3, and then she just fell asleep because Kristen pulled her in. But Freddy sucks her dry. That sounds wrong to say that, but hear me out. He basically kisses her, but then he's sucking all the life out of her, and she's like deflating. And then he's, you know, he flops her down, and he's like, "You flunked." And I'm like, okay, that's actually pretty cool. It's Rick's death that is the worst, because Rick gets killed by, you know, getting stabbed by Freddy's glove, but he's fighting Freddy, who is invisible, and, you know, for someone who's doing these karate things, he's just throwing haymakers, you know, like roundhouse punches and shit. So it was like, his death was the worst. And then you got fucking Debbie's death, where she's lifting the weights and Freddy just, like, you know, pushes the weight down and then breaks her arms. And then when she flops them back, her arms turn into these insect type of legs. And she's basically turning into a cockroach, right? And then gets killed by getting squeezed in the cockroach hotel, right? You know, you can check in, but you can't check out. So the kills are not bad in this movie. It's just they're not how we would say in the third film, actually, where it's like he sees what you like and he uses it against you. This one is the polar opposite. He sees what you're afraid of and then uses it against you. And it's just like, oh God. And like, it's a shame that as soon as we saw what their characteristics were, we knew that this is somehow going to affect how they die. I mean, oh yeah, by the way, when it comes to Freddy's death, looking into a mirror and then the souls of the children are ripping away at him, pretty badass, I must say. Like, they're pretty cool. That final battle in the church with Freddy and Alice, you know, it was what I would say a pretty good, decent fight. I mean, she put up more of a fight than Nancy kind of did, right, in the first film. I do like that fight, and I just love how they both have their strengths, especially with Freddy having the souls of her friends, and she's having the power of their friends. And she uses everything against him, but that one visual where he uses Sheila's little sound wave thing to burn a hole through Freddy, the effect does not age well. It really does. It's like a green screen spot that just appears on Robert Englund's chest and then just does that, and it's gone. It doesn't look great. That's the only thing I hated about that fight. But other than that, it's not bad for how he gets defeated. I mean, but then again, it's just like he has to look at himself in a mirror to defeat him. Okay, well, what about that hallway full of mirrors in part 3? What about when he could have looked at himself in that fucking mirror, but whatever. It's a cool fitting end to their fight and a cool fitting end to Freddy for this film. Rewatching this film, it was, you know, it's different because the first time I had ever watched this film, my oldest brother had recorded it. So what he would do is he'd rent movies from Blockbuster Movie Gallery and then tape over them or record them on a blank VHS tape. So then after we returned it, we basically had the movie, right? Whatever. But the saturation of the film changed throughout the whole time. So I'd be watching it, it'd be in normal coloration and saturation, and then it'd go to a deep red, then black and white, then a brighter color, then a darker color, and then back to its normal coloring. And that's how I always viewed the movie. So every time I watch part 4, I always expect that every single time. But didn't happen. Anywho, little tidbit for that. Rewatching this movie, it's like, okay, yeah, this was definitely the first one I ever saw, and does it hold up for me? Does it have that nostalgia for me? And I guess you could say this is the one film where it's the first one I ever watched, and the nostalgia's not there. And I mean, like, it could have been there years ago, but when I had watched the rest of the series and watched 3, 2, 1, and everything, you could tell that there was a film that was so much better before this. And for me, when it comes to this film, it's got its charm. It's a nice double feature for 3 and 4, playing on a back-to-back thing. But when it comes to the characters and some of the deaths, it lacks. And for me, this was also the beginning of where Freddy was no longer becoming scary anymore. This is where the wisecracking puns come out, and it showed, because in the next fucking film, it got worse. But, yeah, this was the start, but it wasn't that bad. So, for my rating, I'm going to give A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, a 7 out of 10. So tell me, guys, what did you think of Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more content. And don't forget to hit that bell notification so you can get notified about all the other videos coming out on the channel, especially when it comes to the Elm Street franchise. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. This has been the Ginger Snap Series Month of Horror-WEEN. I'm your host, Steven Harrold. I will talk to you guys later, and whatever you do, don't fall asleep.